Home to some of the greatest artworks, historical monuments and food on the planet, and with the kind of varied landscapes that you often have to cross continents to see, Italy elates, inspires and moves its visitors like few other countries. Now let's dive into the top 10 best places to visit in Italy. Destination 1. Rome. Once Caput Mundi, capital of the world, Rome was legendarily spawned by a wolf-suckled boy, developed into a vast empire, rooted itself as the home of the Catholic Church and is now the repository of more than 2 millennia of art and architecture. Rome should definitely be the centerpiece of your trip if you're going to Italy for the first time, but there's simply too much to see in one visit, from the Pantheon and the Colosseum to Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel and countless works by Caravaggio. So do as countless others have done before you, toss a coin into the Trevi Fountain and promise to return. Destination 2. Tuscany. From Botticelli's Venus, emerging coyly from the water in the Uffizi Gallery, to the mind-boggling dome of its cathedral, Florence is a feast for the eyes. This was, of course, the seat of the Renaissance, and there are knockout names at every turn: Michelangelo in the Accademia, Donatello in the Bargello, Leonardo and Raphael in the Uffizi. Further afield, Tuscany, Italy's most romanticized region, is an undulating landscape of sinuous cypress trees, olive groves, and coveted regional treasures. From the Gothic majesty of Siena and the Manhattan-esque skyline of medieval San Gimignano to the vineyards of Italy's most famous wine region, Chianti, and the rolling, cypress-studded hills of the Val d'Orcia. Destination 3. Amalfi Coast. Italy's most celebrated coastline is a gripping strip. Coastal mountains plunge into piercing blue sea in a primetime vertical scene of precipitous crags, sun-bleached villages, and cliffs rearing up behind. Between sea and sky, mountaintop hiking trails deliver Tyrrhenian panoramas fit for a god. While some may argue that the peninsula's most beautiful coast is Liguria's Cinque Terre or Calabria's Costa Viola, it is the Amalfi Coast that has seduced and inspired countless greats, from Wagner and D.H. Lawrence to Tennessee Williams, Rudolf Nureyev and Gore Vidal. Of course, its staggering looks also make it one of the best places in Italy for couples. Destination 4. Pompeii. Frozen in its death throes, the time-warped ruins of Pompeii hurtle you 2,000 years into the past. Wander through chariot-grooved Roman streets, lavishly frescoed villas and bathhouses, food stores and markets, theaters, even an ancient brothel. Then, in the eerie stillness, your eye on ominous empty Vesuvius, ponder Pliny the Younger's terrifying account of the town's final hours. Darkness came on again ashes, thick and heavy. We got up repeatedly to shake these off, otherwise we would have been buried and crushed by the weight. Destination 5. Lago di Como. If it's good enough for the Clooneys and vacationing Obamas, it's good enough for mere mortals. Nestled in the shadow of the Rhaetian Alps, dazzling Lago di Como is Lombardy's most spectacular lake. Its lavish Liberty-style villas are home to movie moguls, fashion royalty and Arab sheiks, while the lake's siren calls include gardens at villas Melzi d'Eril, Carlotta and Balbianello that blush pink with camellias, azaleas and rhododendrons in April and May. The city of Como itself is a hotbed of arresting architecture, from the Gothic cathedral to Palazzo Taragni, built by the fascists as their party headquarters. It's a classic example of Italian 1930s rationalism and a striking reminder of the atrocities committed by the regime. Destination 6. Sardinia. The English language fails to accurately describe the varied blue, green and, in the deepest shadows, purple colors of Sardinia's seas. While models, ministers and Permatan celebrities wine, dine and sail along the glossy Costa Smeralda, much of the island, the Med's second largest after Sicily, remains a wild, raw playground. Explore its rugged coastal beauty, from the tumble-down boulders of Santa Teresa di Gallura and the wind-chiseled cliff face of the Golfo di Orosi to the wind-swept beauty of the Costa Verde's dune-backed beaches. But spend time inland too and you'll find some of Europe's finest prehistoric remains, mysterious nuraghi, megalithic buildings, burial sites so grand they're known as giants' tombs, and the mountain villages of Barbagia, where locals still practice centuries-old traditions. Destination 7. Naples. Pompeii, pizza and a whole lot of panache. Naples is a city like no other. Layered like a lasagna, each strip of history on top of the last, this is a place where, underground, you can walk along ancient Greek and Roman roads, while at street level there are sumptuous churches, Baroque palaces and Maradona everywhere. Outside the city, Vesuvius looms over the time capsules of Pompeii and Herculaneum, while in town, living in the shadow of a volcano gives life a sense of urgency. All that makes for a place like nowhere else. Destination 8 Venice. Unique is an overused word, but in the case of Venice, there's no better description. This really is a dreamscape of intricately carved palazzos, gilded churches and world-class museums, all floating on water and crisscrossed by quiet canals. Avoid the temptation to do a quick drop-in visit to see the main sights. The real Venice is in the silent canals and narrow alleyways, which cast a spell on all who move through them. Tick off the Rialto Bridge and Piazza San Marco, but then stay on to experience this most precious, and precarious, of cities. Destination 9 Mount Etna. Known to the Greeks as the column that holds up the sky, Mt. Etna is not only Europe's largest volcano, it's one of the world's most active. The ancients believed the giant typhoon, lived in its crater and lit the sky with spectacular pyrotechnics. Today they simply call it Ida, or her. At 3,326 meters, 10,912 feet, she literally towers above Sicily's Ionian coast. Tackle her on foot or on a guided 4WD tour, or stick to the lower slopes, where you'll find some of Italy's most exciting wines being grown in the uber-fertile volcanic soil. Sicily is one of the nicest places in Italy to visit, thanks to its extraordinary wealth of history and architecture, its jaw-dropper coastline and, of course, the ever-welcoming Sicilians. Destination 10 Milan. Italy's fashion capital often gets a bad rap, too international, too organized, not chaotic enough. Don't believe it. Where else can you go from a Gothic-style cathedral, started in the 14th century, to masterpieces by Leonardo? His Last Supper fresco in the Church of Santa Maria del Grazie is a showstopper, but so is the Sala degli Assi in the Castello Sforzesco, which he painted as a trompe-l'oeil forest bower. Milan's restaurants pull together the best food from the Italian peninsula, it's home to one of Italy's rare cocktail scenes, and its fashion houses are transforming the city's modern art scene with venues like Fondazione Prada, an old distillery now housing works by the likes of Jeff Koons and Damien Hirst, as well as putting on top-notch temporary exhibitions.